Welcome everyone to John Overton WICOR Bites, where each week we review a different WICOR instructional strategy to help you maximize student learning. My name is John Auld. I'm a District EL secondary coach for Antioch High, Glencliff High, Overton High, McGavock High, Antioch Middle, McMurray Middle, Thurgood Marshall Middle, and Wright Middle. This week I have the privilege of delivering this content about thinking maps, which I am a trained trainer for. And today we are going to focus on thinking maps, part 1. Okay, let's review briefly what thinking maps are, when we should use them, and why we should use them. We recognize that many of you have received this training before, while some of you may never have had it. So what are thinking maps? Thinking maps are a consistent set of 8 visual verbal learning tools, each based on a fundamental thinking process, created from substantial research on how humans learn. The 8 patterns of learning that thinking maps has identified are defining or brainstorming, typically with nouns, describing with adjectives, comparing and contrasting, classifying, part to whole, sequencing, cause and effect, and making analogies. So let's think about when you use thinking maps. Well, you use thinking maps for a variety of different ways. Typically to introduce and help students visually organize new concepts and ideas, as a tool for note-taking and organizing information during a lesson, to help students apply new knowledge and skills in a structured way as part of guided or independent practice, and to help students brainstorm and organize their ideas before a summative writing or other summative assessment. Finally, let's consider why. This is extremely important that we consider this. Thinking maps help students organize and represent their thoughts while creating a reference point for future summative tasks. Thinking maps help teachers to easily and efficiently develop graphic organizers for any cognitive process. At this point, please take a second to pause, reflect, and discuss these questions with your colleagues. Okay, so let's think about thinking maps. This section is meant to show how thinking maps have qualities that improve upon standard graphic organizers. So let's consider that for a minute. Graphic organizers are visuals, but they are different from thinking maps because of the lack of patterns. When we continually ask students to change the way they use and display the information, they are spending too much cognitive energy on the process of filling out the new graphic organizer and not enough cognitive energy on engaging with the content itself. Okay, this week we will focus on the first 4 thinking maps, and then next week we will move into the last 4. Remember, many of the students may well have used and been taught thinking maps in their elementary and middle schools. For example, I have trained McMurray Middle on thinking maps in the fall semester, and all classes at the school have been using the maps extensively. Let's start with the first map, the circle map, which is used for defining or brainstorming. The circle map is used for defining or brainstorming. It can be used in any classroom or in any meeting. Many people use this and other thinking maps in their personal lives too. Key questions that you may ask yourself or use with students when considering using the circle map are: what is the definition of? What do you know about? And key words that signal an opportunity for a circle map to be used would be define, brainstorm, list, identify, explore the meaning. You may also notice that there is writing in this example you see on the screen outside of the inner and outer circle. This is the frame of reference within the frame of reference. We'll discuss this next week. Okay, let's move on now to the bubble map. The bubble map, as you can see, deals with describing and the use of adjectives. Just like with the circle map, there are some key questions that we need to consider when using the bubble map. For example, which word best describes blank? Or, what are the qualities of blank? There are also key words that could signal use for a bubble map, such as describe, use vivid language, adjectives, qualities, properties. It is really important for the bubble map to stay true to the use of adjectives only in the small bubbles that you see that connect to the topic in the inside circle. Okay, as you can see on the screen, we have an example of a bubble map. And in this example, adjectives have been used and extended a little bit, which is fine. You can see as well, we have some tips on a writing extension. Bubble maps lend themselves to descriptive writing, and some example quick write questions could be descriptive. Write a short story of a scene where the topic of your bubble map plays a central role. Use the adjectives to bring the topic to life in your narrative. Another one could be reflective. Reflect on the adjectives in your bubble map. How do these qualities influence your understanding or feelings about it? And one other tip is provide students with an adjective list of more complex adjectives and let them use them when they are creating their own bubble maps. Okay, we are going to move on to our third map, which is the double bubble map. As you can see, the focus here is comparing and contrasting. And there are some key things to consider, some key questions. So one could be, what is the most important difference in? Or, how are blank and blank alike? And when we're thinking about the double bubble, we are comparing and contrasting and looking at similarities and differences. So, here is our example of a double bubble map that you can see. And it is between graphic organizers and thinking maps. Notice the use of color here. And this emphasizes relationships to an even higher level. Students can use the color as a clue for writing or talking about the map's content. And if we want to have some writing extension with the double bubble map, they definitely lend themselves to analytic writing. For example, if you are doing a summary, the question might be, what are the similarities and differences between these two things? Or, if you are doing application, what are the most important qualities that are similar and different about these things? Okay, our final map for this week is the tree map. As you can see, it is classifying things. Just as we did with the other three maps, there are some questions which lend themselves for us to consider when using this map. One might be, which of the following is a detail about? Another might be, a blank is a member of which of the following categories? Some keywords which signal the use of a tree map could be classify, group, sort, categorize, related details, types of, and kinds of. Okay, here we have an example of a tree map, and this one in the top left is about polygons, and it's classifying different types of polygon. And you have a kind of blank version below, which could be used in any ELA class or other class where students are analyzing a text and coming up with the supporting details. Here again is an example for a writing extension. So tree maps lend themselves to organized analytical writing and research papers. A quick write question here could be with regard to application. Based on how the ideas are grouped in your tree map, how would you structure your paragraph or essay? And a summary quick write question could be, write a summary of the main ideas from your tree map. How do these ideas connect to each other? Could there be other ways to classify this information? Okay, we are going to move into the end of our part one with some supports for multilingual learners. The first one is the use of visuals. We're big on visuals. Visuals are great within the maps. And just the second one is going to really focus on using sentence stems and keywords for each map, because we want students to use the map as a tool with which to produce language, both orally and in writing, as you can see in the example with apples. Okay, and then also want you to think about how can you use these maps in your class. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a piece of paper. It could be much bigger than that, using chart paper on the floor to recreate maps where students are actually moving to different parts of the map, just like you see in this example, which is looking at types of plant cell compared and contrasted to animal cells. And here you might have the student in the middle showing that they are the same because they both have a nucleus, but the plant cells might have another student representing they have large vacuoles, whereas the difference here, you might have other students showing that they have small vacuoles and also flagella. Let's take it as that. Okay, so lots of supports there. Really think outside the box. We want you to go for it and use these maps as best as you can. Okay, that is the end of our WICOR Bite for this week, part 1 on thinking maps, where we've covered these 4 maps you can see on your screen: the circle map, the bubble map, the double bubble map, and the tree map. Really want to encourage you to use these maps in upcoming lessons and standards in the scope of your curriculum. You know, how would you incorporate one? Maybe we've discussed today something that connected with you, and they're such a great way to promote student oral output and also writing output as well. If you have any questions or concerns about any of this, please reach out to your 3 wonderful coaches here. And there are QR codes for which to set up a meeting with each one of them. Take care, everybody.